Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. So on today's video I'm going to do a 2-year 10,000 kilometer review on my 2017 Yamaha MT09 Gen 2. Right guys, so aim of this video is to help you decide whether or not you should buy a Yamaha MT09. Now this is my personal opinion on the bike, my experiences with it since I've had it. I've owned it for 2 years and I've covered 10,000 kilometers. So I feel it's a good time for me to be able to give you an honest review on my thoughts of this bike and the issues, pros and cons basically. So we'll get stuck into it. Right guys, so let's talk about the engine. So this for me is the jewel of this bike. The engine is absolutely epic, and this is the sole reason why I purchased this bike in the first place, is for that beautiful triple inline 3 engine. So Yamaha started making triples way back in the 80s, and then they haven't made one up until this. They brought out this one, the cross plane 3 inline 3. Now this is the Gen 2 model, so it's 847cc. The newer ones are close to 900cc, so it's not even really an 850, or I suppose you could say you class it as an 850, not really a 900. Makes 115 horsepower stock from the factory. That's at the crank, with a good system on like what I've got here, and a tune filter. You can see around 117, 115. You can see that figure pretty much at the rear wheel. I know some people have got around the 120s, but just around 100 horsepower. So what are the pros with this engine? Well, absolute bulletproof motor. I know people say that a lot about engines, but this thing, this is basically a commuter bike, and you got to think this engine puts out 115 horsepower. That's up there with like the inline 4s back in the day, or your R6s and stuff like that. So it's pretty much a 600 super sport powered motor, and then they've packaged it up in this really like cheap to buy budget platform. They basically make this really decent, solid, bulletproof 3-cylinder motor, which to be honest sounds absolutely mint, and that's one of the big pluses. It's absolutely bulletproof. It's used as a commuter. It's in multiple platforms all throughout Yamaha's lineup. There's a lot of people doing well over 100,000 Ks on these motors before they've even touched them. Like no work, just change the oil, regular servicing, well over 100,000 Ks. So these motors, you know, that'd lead you to think that they're not that highly stressed, and the way they put out the power is awesome. It's got a lot of low down grunt, and also it likes to scream at the top end as well, which, yes, you've definitely got to own one if you've not had one. Like they are, the engine for me has just been awesome. So yeah, the pros, the engine absolutely bulletproof, 100,000 Ks, easy, no issues, just drop the oil. This bike has been used for mainly fast road riding, like on a Sunday, the occasional trip away, but mainly fast road fun riding on the weekends. You know, it'll do wheelies, stoppies, all the fun stuff you want to do, this bike will do it. And it's got the power. It's not like scary fast. It's quick enough, that's all I'll say. It's quick enough. It'll do everything you need it to do, and you chuck an exhaust on these things and they sound absolutely awesome. Like you'll absolutely love it. They'll pop flames. I've got a video on my channel with me where I installed the exhaust and it was popping flames from when I installed it. Gearbox is awesome, not an issue. It's got a factory fitted quick shifter for a budget commuter spec bike to have an upshifter. Quick shifter up only, doesn't do down, it's not bi-directional, so you just got an upshifter. That's from 2017 upwards on the Gen 2. This bike in 2 years has never once not started. It's never once caused me any issues whatsoever. I've had no dramas with it. It's absolutely awesome. And you just, that's the thing with these, especially Yamaha, you just know when you want it to ride. When you want to go for a ride, you know it's going to start, you know you're going to go for a ride. Because that's the thing with these. That was one of the main reasons for me why I bought it. I wanted reliability. I had a Diavel before, absolutely awesome bike, but it had a mind of its own. Sometimes it'd run, sometimes it wouldn't. Sometimes it wanted to start. It was just, yeah. I went to this, and this has just been awesome. Don't even think about reliability. It's there, turn the key, starts up, no issues whatsoever. And you can beat on it all day long, put it in the garage, come back the next day, start it up, and it'll run. Don't get me wrong, I ride my bikes hard, and I wouldn't say I beat on them, but I ride them hard, but I'm mechanically sympathetic, so I don't constantly thrash the pants off it, and I don't take it to the red line and bash the limiter. And obviously there's times where that happens when you've been having a bit of a spirited ride, but generally speaking, like, it's warmed up, it's taken care of, it's only got the best fuel in it. I personally change the oil on this motor every 2,500 Ks. Might seem excessive, Yamaha don't call for it. I put fully synthetic in, not semi, but I just like my bikes to have brand new, fresh, fully synthetic oil. It doesn't cost that much for the bike. That's just something that I do for them. It's a bit of peace of mind because I want the motors to last. And yes, that's all I can say about the engine. It's absolute minty. Right guys, let's now talk about the handling and suspension, which is the Achilles heel of this bike. You've got fully adjustable front forks. You've got your preload adjustability. Then you've got compression in your left leg and rebound in the right. I've set this up for my weight. It is quite hard, it's quite firm. I've set it up as sort of a fast road setup. It is quite firm. Same with the rear. The front end, it's really high. It's quite vague as well when you really get on the power, because obviously this bike is all about wheelies, but when you get on the power, it's hard to keep that front down. You really have to shift your weight over the front of the tank to get it down. I installed a steering dampener on this bike, and I can ride this bike to its max. I've found the limits of this bike, and the front end, the bike was so light, it was just never had a full-on tank slapper, but the handlebars would just start going, and it was almost at a certain speed. You hit a certain speed and it's going, and then you back off a little bit and it's gone, and then you go back to the same speed and it comes on again, back off, gone, and then back on, and it comes back again. So I put a steering dampener on it, and that's been awesome. Like landing wheelies, you haven't got to worry about the front end. I started it out on like setting 5, and then I've slowly crept it up because I've been doing a lot more stuff. So I've crept it up to it's on like 8 or 9, so it's almost at its firmest, and it definitely holds that front end straight. So 100%, if you're getting one, I definitely recommend a steering dampener. I just got a bit of a budget one, but right guys, let's talk about the rear shock. This is probably the worst of the bunch in terms of the suspension. The suspension on the front, it is really soft, like I said. Set it up for your weight, it's not too bad, it's alright. Stick a steering dampener on and it'll be fine. I don't think if you ride the bike within its means, and we'll get to that. The rear shock, so the rear shock for me is terrible. It was like an absolute pogo stick. First time I bought this bike, I went on some fast roads, pushed it fairly hard, and I was almost bouncing off the seat. It was ridiculous, and it wouldn't stop. It'd just keep bouncing. For me, that's where you can really see where this bike was built to a budget, because this bike is excellent value for money. There's no other bike I don't think you can get on the market that will give you the thrills and the kicks that this thing will for this price, as well as being super reliable. But you can tell where they cut the corners. The rear shock is an absolute shocker. What you want to do, you can buy aftermarket suspension. A lot of people chuck on the ZX6 or the ZX10R rear shock on them. I think from 2010 they fit. A lot of people go with that, and a lot of guys have said it's transformed the bike, it's a lot more stable. What I find with it is it's got a certain point speed wise, it'll ride fairly fast, well above the speed limit this bike will go. Obviously I've never broken the speed limit, but this bike will go above the speed limit quite comfortably. But when you start mixing with super sports like your S1000s and Fireblades and your GSX R1000s, this thing won't even it just won't keep up with them, and it gets to the point where it gets pretty scary. Like it just gets in, ties itself in knots basically. I think the chassis is good, but the suspension, and the bike's just not built for it. That's not what it was designed for. But it'll go fast, but just don't expect like sports bike performance. This is all my opinion and my experience of riding this bike and pushing it to its limits. That its limits come pretty quick when you start going fast. But with a good suspension setup, I think you could iron that out. But then kind of defeats the object of the bike. You're buying a budget bike, you start putting extra suspension on, spending thousands and getting it set up, and you want to go fast, you may as well just buy a sports bike that's set up for it. So we'll talk about the brakes. Absolutely no issues with them. The classic Yamaha front brake setup. I know even with the top of the range, even with the top of the range Yamaha R1M, it's not got the best of brakes, and a lot of people swap them out for Brembos. This is no different. It's enough for the bike. It does a job, but like I say, they're not the best feeling, but that's Yamaha. Alright, so now we'll talk about the fun stuff. Stunts. What can you do on this bike? Pretty much what can't you do on it really. Like I said, you can go scratching on the weekends, it'll do it within reason. You can't go silly on it, but it's absolute a barrel of laughs. It's a total hooligan bike. It loves to wheelie, and I've learned how to wheelie really good on this bike. It's been awesome for that, and it just eggs you on all the time, and you just can't keep the front end down. You just constantly want to wheelie. It's really good for that. Now, the traction control, we'll talk about that. It's got three. We'll talk about power modes. It's got 3 power modes. It's got A, standard, and B. B mode is just a bit. They're all same power, but B mode's a bit less responsive. Standard is my favourite, and A is the fast, like a lot more sporty throttle response. Like I say, all 3 power modes, all the same power, just different throttle response. Standard for me is by far the best. It's less twitchy. A is really twitchy, and you can almost get in a bit of a whiskey throttle type situation. It's that bad. But an ECU flash, I believe, irons all that out and smooths the throttle response. So I stick it in standard. Traction control, there is 2 levels of traction control. Level 2 won't really let you power wheelie. It'll drop it straight down. Traction 1 will let you power wheelie. You can still flip the bike, by the way, so don't think you can just hand the throttle and it's got lift control, so it's not. You cannot clutch up a wheelie with traction on. It will come up and then it'll just cut out the power and drop it back down. So, because I like to wheelie on private roads, obviously, I keep it on. I keep the traction off, completely off. I don't have the traction on whatsoever. Keep the traction off, and then you can clutch up. And the best gear on this is second gear. All you want to do, 4,000 RPM, second gear, little dab of the clutch, tiny bit of throttle, and it's up. And then you can control it on the throttle. Obviously, your back brake if you get too high up. So then the modes, but I just always ride with traction off. Never had an issue. If I was knew that I was getting in the twisties and I was going pretty hard, I'd probably pull over, maybe put the traction on 1 just to give you that little bit of peace of mind. But I've rode this traction off fast, no issues whatsoever. So then are the keys for the wheelies. If you want the quick shifter to sound really good at low RPM, sounds really good at upshifting at high RPM, but if you want that quick shifter like black sound, then just touch the throttle as you upshift. Just twitch the throttle, and it'll make that noise. So that's a little tip for you. Found that one out. That's pretty good. Yeah, so that's the stunts really. It'll do whatever you want it to do, and it's absolute fun as well. So let's talk about the build quality and modifications. So build quality, typical Japanese. It's decently solid. Obviously, please bear in mind this bike was built to a budget, so the switch gear on it is quite chippy, plasticky feeling. It's not got that European feel to it, that bit of quality compared to the European models. But like I say, bikes built to a price, and you can definitely see that in a lot of the switch gear and electronics. Not saying that they've ever failed or don't work, but they just do feel a bit cheapy feeling. And like with bits like that, you can see where the money went on this absolute fucking stonking engine. Like 100% cheap out. I mean, if it were me, I'd be like, yeah, totally cheap out on the indicators and the starter switch and all that junk, and spend it on this motor, because this motor is an absolute peach. Modifications, heaps of modifications for them. They've been around, the platform's been around for ages, since like 2014 I think. So there's heaps of mods for them. I've got the full trim, I've got any exhaust, there's heaps of exhausts. The Acras are really popular. Yeah, there's heaps of bits that you can bolt onto them. The mods that I've done is the exhaust, I did the rear passenger peg delete, tail tidy, carbon tank cover protector, carbon rear hugger, the bobbins, GB crash protections. I put the handlebars on. There's a video where I put Pro Taper Carmichael bars on. Completely transformed the bike again. Really good. Definitely recommend switching the bars out. Bar end mirrors, grips, shorty levers, DPM screen on the front. That's pretty much it really. But yeah, there's lots of aftermarket parts, so you can really go to town and make the bike your own. There's even turbo kits available. There's a company, I think it's Extreme Creations, I'm not sure, in Australia, that do turbo kits for these, and they get about 200 horsepower. Absolutely, I mean, I wouldn't want to put 200 horsepower in this, because the chassis isn't capable, in my opinion. Not for what I would use it for. It's got enough power in its platform as it is now, so you wouldn't want to go chucking 1000cc sport bike power to it. Right guys, so let's wrap up this review and go over a few of the key attributes. So 100% this engine, absolutely bags of character, ultra reliable. The bike's set up, it's really lightweight, really manageable naked bike. Not forgetting, absolutely excellent value for money. This has got to be, same again, my opinion, this has got to be the best value motorcycle you can buy on the market. It is just unbelievable, and it's awesome if you're getting new into motorcycles as well. It's got enough power to give you a taste, and keep you entertained, and at the same time just awesome. Like, for the money, I can't believe that they can build such a good bike for the price. It's just crazy. And then also, like, you can progress onto it. Like, I've been riding, so I've been riding since I was 17, and I'm 40 now, and I've had all manner of bikes, from cruisers to sports bikes, back, everything. And this one, I've kept it for 2 years, and I've had nothing but fun with it. It's absolutely awesome. Makes me smile every time I ride it, and I've learned and I've grown a lot from this bike as well. So this bike has added another level, another dimension to motorcycling for me, which was the stunt side. So yeah, couldn't fault it. So it's good for beginners and experienced. So let's talk about a few of the key flaws. It is built to a budget. It is a commuter bike. You've got budget suspension on it, and when pushed hard, ties itself in knots. So it's not quite got enough power for me. I like a bit more power, around the 100 horsepower. I always think around the 100 horsepower is a sweet brake horsepower for a road bike. It really is. If someone gives you a motorbike and it's got 100 horsepower, you can guarantee you're going to have fun on it. I've had bikes with 70 horsepower. I had a Yamaha Bolt that was around 70 horsepower. That was really good fun, but it was constantly on the throttle stop. But it was really good fun. So yeah, around that 100 horsepower, it's still fast. You still get that real fast sense of speed that you like with bikes, but it's not quite scary fast. And as an experienced rider, and if you want something scary fast, then look elsewhere. You want to be pushing that 200 horsepower mark. And probably I'd say is the snatchy throttle. Probably needs to flash just to remove that snatchy throttle. However, I've had this for 2 years and I've not flashed it. I have thought about getting it tuned, but I was never going to keep it that long term to go and spend even more money and get it dyno tuned. And once I stuck it in standard mode, I was fine. I've never had an issue with it. So, but then with a couple of things just to be aware of. If you're in A mode, it can be a bit snatchy. Would I recommend anyone to buy this bike? 110%. Even if you've been riding as long as I have, 100% still recommend this bike. If I could afford to, I would keep this bike as a second bike. I think it's awesome. Like, I would fully stunt kit it out. I'd get the cages on it, and I'd just purely have it as a fun stunt bike. Like I say, if I could afford it, I'd keep it. I am looking at purchasing another bike, just something with a bit more power, something a bit more suited to me. And plus, I just like a change. I like to switch things around. But 100% would recommend, 110% would recommend this bike to anyone. You cannot go wrong with it. Yamaha MT09. They've absolutely knocked it out of the park with this engine and this bike. And once you know the little niggles which I've explained to you, then you're well away. So thanks for watching, guys. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. It really helps us out. And I'll see you in another one. Maybe a new bike reveal.